Hello, and welcome back to the MCAT grind. This is chapter 4 for psychology about consciousness and cognition. For consciousness, you have to understand the different stages of sleep regarding awake, stage 1 through 4, and rapid eye movement. In the awake stage, your electroencephalogram machine would show beta and alpha waves. Beta waves are more active and just think of it as just a gentle wave, but alpha waves are even slower. So think about beta waves as you're just actively moving, doing your day-to-day activities, and alpha waves is when you're feeling groggy after lunch. You're still kind of awake, but you're not really paying attention, so nice and slow. However, in stage 1 is when you begin to lightly fall asleep. You close your eyes and you want to lightly doze off, and that's when your theta waves activate. Theta waves are even slower, but they're regular. And what it does is just light sleep, and it's just the starting time when you start to fall asleep. Stage 2 is similar to stage 1, where you're still doing a light sleep. You might doze in and out of consciousness. However, sleep spindles and K fibers, K bundles, also happen in your light sleep. What they look like on the EEG is just little knots, like a heart. When you have a heartbeat, right? It does a little up, down, as well as quickly little zigzags. So stage 1 and 2, you're still barely falling asleep, and you might experience that sudden jerk up. If someone or no outside stimulus happen, you just suddenly jerk awake in the middle of the class. That's when you're still in stage 1 and 2. In stage 3 and 4, it's pretty much super hard to wake up because you're undergoing delta waves and you're actively dreaming in this stage. During this stage, you also think about different facts and declarative memory in your head during this stage, and that's when dreams start to occur. Delta waves are more regular, and dreaming occurs in this stage, and when you hit further into rapid eye movement, REM sleep, you go back to what appears to be an awake EEG diagram, because what happens during that is you still dream, but you experience more vivid dreams. So it's more heading to your procedural memory, and what happens during that is you experience vivid movements in your head, like going on a run, doing some kind of events. And during rapid eye movement, it's also called paradoxical sleep, because you see how it slowly progress slower and slower waves. In rapid eye movement, your EEG goes back to beta waves, which is like you're awake. And if you look at someone who's undergoing rapid eye movement, you can see their eyelid doing this as if their eye is actually looking at an image. There are several theories on why we dream. Some are called activation synthesis, which is just your brain sending random chemicals and just to stay awake. But others believe that dreams help us incorporate memory. So 3 and 4 are incorporating facts and events happen throughout the day. And rapid eye movement during REM sleep, procedural memory are encoded. So you should better get good and deep sleep. There are some sleeping disorders that happen in stage 3 and 4 as well as REM sleep. Those can be categorized into dysomnia and parasomnia. Dysomnia, think dysfunction with sleeping, so trouble with sleeping. You may experience unable to sleep during the night, or sudden narcolepsy, like suddenly sleeping during the day. So with the timing and the duration of sleep will be dysomnia. Parasomnia is trouble during sleeping. So when you're asleep, you do odd behaviors such as sleepwalking, maybe sleep talking, and so forth. And maybe you could have night terrors or super bad dreams, and you wake up in cold sweat. Alright, that was consciousness, and of course there are some drugs that can influence and affect how your consciousness behave. Depressants, drugs, help you relax. So alcohol, barbiturates, and of course the abuse of any of these drugs would lead to devastating effects. So make sure if these are used, they're used in recommended dosages. Stimulants are used to excite, so include amphetamines, meth, cocaine, meth is just shorthand, and of course there are very much some are recreational uses and to the point of drug abuse. So it is very important to pay attention to what they use and what they do. Opiates help reduce pain. Those could be heroin and morphine. Morphine is commonly used in surgical procedures. However, you may also notice that our body naturally produces endorphin. So endorphin help painkiller. But a thing with opiates is that one could also get very much addicted to morphine is common because the lack of pain helps us experience euphoria, like a sense of not feeling pain and just painless and like we're out of this world. Hallucinogens help induce fantasy. So LSD, ketamine drugs induce vivid non-reality images in our head. So any of these drugs recommend strongly against taking them just in general because they're just not many of these influence our body's behavior when our body already naturally produces many of these, right? Remember, depressants help you relax. However, if you have serotonin that naturally produces in your body, it converts to melatonin, which helps you fall asleep better, and that is a way to help you relax. Stimulants are also in the form of cortisol produced by your adrenal cortex, and what that does is induce wakefulness and helping you stay awake and be ready to go. Opiates, of course, endorphins already naturally produced in your body. Hallucinogens is just, I don't know what to say about it. It's just help you fantasize about real life, but I think it's better to get real. Marijuana is special because it is both depressant, stimulant, and hallucinogens as outlined in the MCAT. However, it is also prescribed as pain relief by medication in opiates. So pretty much for all of them. Moving on, we have cognition. Cognition involves many different things. So cognition is thinking. It's another word for thinking and what you do in your brain. What do you think of when you have to problem solve is using different methods. One of the methods is trial and error. If I have a math question, such as solving for a derivative, I could try doing it through the chain rule or using different rules, but I will have to test and see if it works. If it doesn't, I will have to go back. Think about you have those baby blocks with different circles and shapes on it. I can grab a random block and just try bloop bloop bloop, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, I have to try another one. Algorithm is when you do things and problem solve in a specific pattern. Let's say you're going to a library and looking for a book. Doing an algorithm means you will have to go through every shelf, but eventually you will definitely find and arrive at the right answer, but it just takes a lot more time. But you're doing algorithm to make sure you arrive at the right answer no matter what. Deductive reasoning is thinking and then predicting. For instance, if you have a vase that's broken, you would first look at the broken pieces of shards and you would see traces of mud paws that look like cat paws around, you would say, okay, this is evidence. And I know that there's a neighboring cat that does this, so it must have came into my house and did all of this. So thinking and predicting that it happens. Now, inductive reasoning is observing based on patterns. So if you see on a video camera that this cat always comes here at this time of day, you'd be like, okay, it must be the one that is going to knock down my vase, so I'm going to put my vase away. So that's observing patterns. So deductive, you can think of it as top-down reasoning. Inductive is bottom-up, like induce from the available evidence and going up. Deductive will be thinking about it in your head first and then moving downwards. Deductive versus inductive. Availability heuristic is, heuristics I labeled in green because they are ways or shorthands allows us to arrive at answer quickly, but at the same time they could give us the wrong answer. Availability heuristic would be knowing someone or something personally, and then you use that information to try to get the right answer. Representative heuristic is based on the stereotype in your head of what that population or scenario would be like. For instance, if someone asks you, hey, what would be a good gift to send to my nurse friend, then you would think, okay, well, based on availability heuristic, you have a nurse friend as well, and you think that they don't get a chance to take a break often, so maybe give them a spa ticket. The representative heuristic would be based on stereotype. Although they say the nurse, you think, okay, well, nurse often I know are women, and even though they might not be a woman, you just based on stereotype that, okay, well, perhaps give them some flowers. Intuition is also like a shortcut, however, it could also be wrong. Due to bias, like bias and the heuristic we said earlier, they're quick methods to arrive at an answer, but it might not be the correct one. Cognitive development are from John Piaget. John Piaget. He labeled these stages of cognitive development, of how we slowly develop our ways of thinking. From sensory motor stage, from birth to 2 years old, they start interacting with the world and touch and sense, and they just try to absorb as much as they can. When they're able to stop playing peekaboo and develop object permanence, that's when they move on to the next stage. Think about when you play with little kids, you do peekaboo, right? Cover your face and then open. They think, wow, you actually appear in thin air. However, once they develop object permanence, they know that even when hidden, the object is still there. So when you hide your face and open, they just look at you and say, well, you're still there. I know you're there when you cover your face. So it's no longer fun for them, and they move on to the next stage. In pre-operational stage, they interact with the world still with different puzzles and playing simple toys and stacking, and their motor functions are pretty much developed. What they don't realize is laws of conservation and thinking from another perspective. If you give them 2 glasses of water, one is tall and one is short, but the short one has a lot wider and the tall one is a lot thinner, and you pour equal amounts of volume of water into both of them, they would pick the taller one because they just think, it's a lot higher, and I think that one will have more water. But they don't realize the other perspective of the side-to-side volume. And once they understand the law of conservation, they will move on to concrete operational, which they will begin to try to problem solve. However, their problem solving skill is still not at the ability of abstract thinking. So once they're able to think abstractly and test things one by one, and being able to trial and error effectively, then they will move on to formal operations and move on to more complex, such as math, algebraic expressions. In language development, there are phonemes, which are like the basic sound block. There is an international phonetic table, which all of the human language share. They're the very, very small base blocks of just sound, like p, f, g, d, u, i. Those basic sounds that just makes up the very, very basic. Think about them as like the atoms. When you have morphemes, they're the parts of the phonemes combined together to make a meaning. Like design. Design is a word that has the meaning of to make something, and then if you attach it with ing at the end, ing, that is also a morpheme. Ing itself is a block with a meaning to it. It means like doing or partaking in the action of. Syntax is the ordering of different words, and they matter because if you have something before the other, it could change the outcome of events. Pragmatics is the context, such as your inflection of tone, or perhaps where this thing takes place, referring to different subjects or objects and whatnots. The Horphian hypothesis describes how language impacts the way we think. In some languages, like Inuit, they have a lot more words for snow. Then we can say that an Inuit person would have a lot better time distinguishing between different types of snow than another individual. So that is it for consciousness and cognition. See you next time.